music, dancing, drinking, and earnest discussion. So we didn't have music and dancing, which is probably a good thing, but we did have some drinking last night, quite a lot of drinking I saw down on level 1. As for earnest discussion, well, I think there's been, and as I'm sure you would agree, there's been plenty of earnest discussion. In fact, there's been so much information, I think you'd agree, over the last 2 days through presentations, panel sessions, perhaps conversations outside, the breakout rooms. So I think what we really want to do is to distill all that information and put it in a form we can take away with us. So how do we do this? Well, we do this through our next panel session, which is actually called a takeaway panel. And this takeaway panel will be held by the chairman of the organizing committee, Dr. Raymond Krishnan, and he will be helped by some very esteemed guests who will be on his panel. So I'll let Raymond to tell you all about this. Thank you, Raymond.
Thanks, Bob. It's the homeward stretch. Yeah. I'd like to invite my panelists up on stage. Kendrick, what's up on stage? Okay. Kendrick from Western Digital, Scott Phillips, Echo Shoes, Brett Marshall, Zulik Pharma, and Martin Yu from E2 Open. Could you please join me on stage? So for those of you who are not so familiar with LogiSYM, what we normally do at the end is we have a takeaway panel. We invite either the moderators or some of the panelists or speakers who've been involved for the last couple of days to come and give us some key takeaways. What we also try and do at the start of every LogiSYM is look at what we said at the last takeaway panel and to see how correct we were in our forecast. We didn't do that this year because we kind of lost momentum with COVID. And actually, I can't find my notes from that last session that we did. So we're doing away with part 1, but we do have part 2. So we've talked about mergers and acquisitions, sustainability, warehouse control systems, impact of extended supply chains, e-commerce logistics. We had a number of breakout sessions. 2 very good breakout sessions were the Shippers Council meetings, or sessions led by our chair of our Shippers Council, Kendrick. That was a closed-door discussion with only shippers, so no 3PLs allowed. And it was basically a chance for us to get together and talk about you guys. So I'm going to ask, starting with you, Martin. What are your key takeaways for the audience for these last couple of days?
Yeah, thanks, thanks, Raymond. So I think the key takeaways that I learned from the audience, I think is I had joined the panel in the first morning, and I think in the panel I told I feel Southeast Asia is lagging behind in the digital transformation journey compared to the MNCs in US, like our key customers, but based on my interactions with the delegates, either 3PLs or shippers, they told me that, right, their headquarters in US are our customers. They are using our solution, but it's them that rejected to be rolled out in Southeast Asia because the requirements are so different, right? They have easily 20 countries covered by the logistics director sits in Singapore compared to the logistics director sits in US. Although the geography is big, but it's only one country. So the requirements are so different. And I start to think, yep, so we as the IT service provider, what we should do instead of really pushing hard from the sales side, but think carefully internally about the product, how we can improve and enable the shippers and 3PLs in APAC and Southeast Asia, most specifically, instead of what I did yesterday was kind of blaming the audience, like not taking on the journey. Yeah, that's my key takeaway.
Thanks, Martin. What about yourself, Kendrick? Key takeaway from yourself?
Yeah, okay, so I'll change my hat, right? Just now I was talking about Western Digital, and now I have the opportunity and privilege to chair the Shippers Council this year. And what the Shippers Council do really is how do we leverage supply chain, which is all of us, right? And to maximize advantage for our companies. And two areas that we really want to focus on is collaboration, right? Collaborative initiatives that we as a shippers community can work together. The other aspect is, of course, how to nurture future-ready logisticians or supply chain professionals. And that's in the line of Industry 4.0 and where do we see ourselves doing 5 years down the road, right? So some takeaways that we had, just start from today, is sustainability. We had 2 sessions, sustainability today. Let me start with that. One interesting thing is how and where does sustainability play with regards to your role in your company. So one of the companies was sharing that 25% of their bonus is on sustainability. They have to meet 11 sort of like KPIs before they can get 25% of their bonus, right? So that's how they put sustainability on their agenda. And it's a challenge to us all. Can we really do that? Can our CEOs do that? Or in 5 years' time, how many companies work towards that direction? And that's sustainability. And another aspect is, yesterday we did a logistics procurement, and that's why 3PLs are not allowed there, right? So we were looking at opportunities. Where can we collaborate together? We talk about segmentation of the customers, of, let's say, the Western Digital's customer. Can we afford 25 days ocean freight versus 12 days if we pay a bit more premium, yeah? Providing no congestion at ports and no spillover of the operations. So these are some of my takeaways. I can elaborate a bit more later as we discuss.
Yes, I'll come back to that. Thanks, Kendrick. What about yourself, Brett?
I think similar to Kendrick, the topic of sustainability is front of mind for me also. I think we've seen some really good examples of how progress can be made, and there has been some tremendous progress. But when you look at a company like Schneider, who's really been pushing this concept since 2010 and made such tremendous progress and continues to set benchmarks that I think we can aspire to as an organisation. And I think most importantly, how they build that as an organisational vision and how they build the engagement of stakeholders across the organisation in their mission. And it's something that I've seen start in our organisation and start to gain strength, but we continue to take inspiration from organisations that, some of those that we've seen today, and Schneider's a good example.
Thanks, Brett. Mr. Phillips.
Yeah, maybe we can just go back up in the helicopter for a minute and just go back to the title of the symposium, the Greek, not the Greek symposium, Bob, but so what as we emerge into the new normal, what does that mean for us? We have a good cross-section of the supply chain world in this room, and we've been on the front page for 2 years in all sorts of different shapes and forms, for good, meaning that we found solutions to unblocking a boat in the sewers or managing to find space on an aircraft to go from A to B, or changing a digital agenda to become more automated as we had labour force work from home and things like this. So how do we stay on the front page as an industry, as a profession, as an ecosystem of supply chain? Because if we don't have continuous disruptions, we need to be getting better and better at what we do to make sure that we are heard, seen, and not put back into the warehouse behind the curtain where we've sort of lived as an industry for some time. So I think as we emerge into the new normal, I guess the challenge is for us to stay on the front page, on the headlines, make sure we're at the board table. There was some great stats from EDB yesterday, where supply chain disruption's top of mind for problems in a company. Well, hopefully in 12 months' time, it's top of mind for providing solutions, profit, sustainability agendas across many, many countries and many industries. So I think the takeaway for me today, mainly, or from the last 2 days, is really keep pushing. We're tired and exhausted from firefighting the last few years, but now's the time to even work harder and make sure we keep that momentum, that we've got some visibility. That's
not very promising. We're tired, but let's keep pushing on. Let's push harder and harder. I'm like sitting here feeling despondent. I'm going to do a poll. I'm not going to ask everyone to stand up, but just where you're at. Kendrick mentioned future-ready logisticians helping groom that next generation. How many of you in this room, just raise your hands, are interested in doing that? Actually doing something about it, dedicating, say, 2 hours of your time every month on this initiative. How many of you? Sorry, I just wanted to, yeah. So 2 hours a month, yeah? 3, 4, 5, half? Barely half. Yeah, about 25%, I'd say. What do you think, Brad? About 25%? Yeah. So if you are, at the end of this session, please see Kendrick. He'll put you to work. Yeah. Okay. No, I'm serious. I mean, a lot of people come to these things and say, at the end of every LogiSYM, I said, I get easily 10 emails from people who say, Raymond, we want to volunteer and we want to do more. So we send them an invite, and out of those 10, every year we keep only one. So 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago. Another question. Sustainability. Steph did ask this. Collaborative opportunities. How many service providers in this room, how many shippers in the room? BCOs, manufacturers? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. So just imagine out of that room, only about, the majority, there are only 6 shippers. I didn't see you raise your hand, Brett. Oh, yeah, okay. Eventually, he got there. So 7, if I take that as a sampling. Okay, interesting.
But Raymond, to that, we have providers and service providers, whether that be logistics or software or enablers, integrators. This is part of the supply chain ecosystem, and it's just as important. So the shippers have a responsibility to also integrate with this and make the best and match their products and services with what their needs are in the shippers. So we need to keep fostering this relationship.
Oh, indeed. Yes, thanks. Yep, you're right, Scott. So one of the things that Martin mentioned earlier, Southeast Asia is lacking behind, right? I'm sure you're looking at you 3 gentlemen, you work for multinationals. Is that the case? Do you have things that are top-driven from your corporate headquarters globally and you just have to execute, or do you actually have that opportunity to make a change, implement something, and do something different? Kendrick?
Just let me start. Though I'm based in Singapore, for Western Digital, our plants are actually like in Penang, Thailand, and China, right? So not many in USA. So one thing good when I first stepped in to Western Digital is all my conference calls are actually in the morning, right? So 9 o'clock they start, and my friends in USA actually dials into our office hours. Why? Because bulk of our labor force are all in Asia. The head of operations actually started a lot from Asia, Southeast Asia per se, before actually moving to the headquarters. So they are very in tune with what goes well in the operations, in the manufacturing, in the production plant, and even how we are progressing as automotive type of company. Yeah, so I can say that it's really an Asia-centric type of company, and I'm glad to be part of it.
Thanks. What about yourself, Scott?
Yeah, we moved our global operations and headquarters here 10 years ago, so I think maybe we're early movers in that aspect. So we've been developing digital agendas. Decision makers are sitting here in Asia, and being a European or a Danish company, that's it's a bit different, especially for a privately owned Danish company, quite conservative. So yeah, I think Asia is still going to be a huge part to play in the next 10 years of developing technologies and fostering better and better supply chains as decision makers continue to move into the region and benefit European and American companies on that aspect.
So, you said earlier about staying relevant. We expect that things that will emerge into this better normal in the next few months, we hope. So how are we going to continue staying relevant? What do we need to do as an industry to ensure that what do you think, Scott?
There's many things. So we have to keep working hard, Raymond. So I know that's depressing for you, but the rest of us will keep working hard. So we need to stay at the forefront. We need to stay at the board tables. We need to keep bringing relevant agendas, relevant ideas, concepts, innovations. We need to bring the enablers and the software companies and the providers in with us on our journey to keep our voice going. And nurture the next generation of talent coming through as well. I think that's hugely important, not just in logistics, but in broader supply chain skill sets. And hopefully, I don't know, maybe this is a bit out there, but maybe a chasing the dream of how can we actually start to contribute to better consumer choices. So how do we create our supply chains, design our supply chains, collectively to start making consumers think more responsibly around sustainability, more responsibly around waste, more responsibly around a shared economy. So these are the things that I think we can take away. But that's a lot of work.
And I try to keep my Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays free for my hobbies, Yeah. Kendrick? Continuing to stay relevant from the Shippers Council's perspective.
Yeah, there was talk yesterday. It's about segmenting, right, the customers, and it can start from anyone, right? Knowing your customers, knowing what they really want, being a customer-focused type of solution that you provide to them. Just now I mentioned about whether the customer can take a 25-day ocean freight versus a 12-day ocean freight, or even no, they need it next day. Yeah, if we are able to know the customers, it sort of goes all the way back in the whole ecosystem. Example, how much inventory do you need? Do you really need warehouses? Do you really need sites nearer the customers? Or can you fulfill everything from your manufacturing? So all these decisions is actually not in silos. It needs to be done as a whole ecosystem. And to do that, we need to reflect back on the disruptions that we had. And it will continue to have, right? Not just this 2 years of COVID, right? Before that, we have the tsunamis, we have the flooding, and so on. It's in our DNA as as supply chain to look at problems, solve it, and overcome it. What's important now is to keep the agenda at the boardroom so that not just for our own being relevant, but we influence the decisions out there. And that's why I started the Shippers Council. One of the goals really is to leverage the supply chain to maximize the company's competitive advantage. That's really just that.
Thanks, Kendrick. Excellent. Do we have any comments, not questions? I mean, of course, you can ask a question, but do we have any comments that you'd like to provide as feedback to us on what we can do to continue staying relevant? It doesn't help that our customers are spoiled brats, right?
Raymond, can I make a couple
Please,
of comments? I think, you know, the change, the very nature of the change that we continue to experience now, for me as an industry, having been involved in the industry for so long, it's never been more exciting than it is now. And although I look after a group of quality people, I say to my quality team as well that they're not just quality practitioners. They have to understand supply chain. They have to be supply chain practitioners. They have to understand digital transformation. They have to understand the new practices in human resource management. They have to understand sustainability. These are all incredible areas for growth and offer tremendous opportunity for development beyond what is just execution, because it's not just execution anymore. And so I think for people who want to remain relevant, you've got to keep managing that change process proactively and really, you know, contributing to the development of your people so that they have the skill sets they need to be able to do, you know, what we've been doing for a while, even better than we do it for the future.
Thanks, Brett. Excellent. Martin, last comment from you?
Thanks. Yeah. So what I can see is, you know, through the sessions, a lot of people, like IT vendors, mentioned about creating a digital twin of the physical supply chain, right? So what I want to say here is the digital twin is not only to duplicate the end-to-end process along the supply chain, but also the kind of networking that we were having here, like this kind of event, a conference, we're having networking with shippers, with 3PLs, and in E2Open, we are trying to build the digital twin of this networking. We call that a multi-enterprise supply chain where people could share data to each other upstream and downstream. So I think that is important. And I think there is this need we see from the industry, and that's why, you know, through the acquisitions, you know, I've talked to a lot of people in these 2 days, and very less of you guys have heard of E2Open before. But if I talk about the acquired companies that we have, for example, Incha, who is the #1 ocean booking platform, for example, BlueJ, who provides TMS for DHL and DB Schenker, or Amber Road, who is doing trade compliance, import, export. Then people start to realize, yeah, I'm your customer, right? And we have been using your software, and we don't know the latest development, right? So I think this is a great opportunity for us to work for the next 6-12 months to really look at the topic and see how we can help, you know, the shippers, 3PLs, everyone connected in the network. Yep. Thanks.
Thanks, Martin. A digital twin for networking. How interesting is that? Do you have a name for the product yet?
So basically there are 3 elements. So one is planning, we call it supply chain planning. Another one is called execution. So we have these 2 through the acquisition. And the third one we call multi-enterprise, and it's called E2Net. So that's the name of the product, yeah.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Digital twin of networking. Okay. You learn something new every day, yeah? No, so gentlemen, thank you very much, yeah? Staying relevant, this is the decade of the supply chain, concepts and ideas. I like what you said, Kendrick. Even prior to COVID, we had disruption, so it's not really not normal for a logistician or a supply chain practitioner to actually deal with issues and solve them and move ahead. And of course, according to Scott, we have to continue working even harder, even though the last couple of years have been very hard. Okay. You must be stronger than you look. So look, we've talked about mergers, acquisitions, sustainability, warehouse control, impact of extended supply chains, e-commerce, logistics. We had a whole bunch of breakout sessions. We've had the Shippers Council. Very interesting. I especially like the conversation we had yesterday. Kendrick, very excited to see what you're going to be producing there. It's been a pretty full 2 days. Since you're such a well-deserved or well-behaved audience, we're going to actually release you a bit early today. You can get to go home. So I'm going to keep my closing remarks brief, yeah? The first thing I'd like to say, as always, is we appreciate the effort you've all taken to carve time out of your schedules. We've had thousands online, or a couple of thousand online, and yesterday it was fairly full, and so was it today. I saw the line at lunch yesterday. That was always a good sign, I guess. We had supply chain issues there as well. There were so many of us, we had trouble getting to the buffet table. But yeah, thank you so much to everyone for taking time out of your day. As I mentioned yesterday, when we first decided to run LogiSYM last year in December, in May, it was still a question mark. Would it be open? Would it be closed? When we had ITAP LogiSYM last year, I think we lost maybe half of delegates because they had to do ART test. Half of them didn't get their test kits. And there was a special test kit that you had to put a battery in and take a picture of it and then either show the picture when you turned up for the event or do a test on site. So I think along the way we lost a whole bunch of people. So thankfully, we timed this just right. It's almost as though there's no COVID, right? Except for having masks and having a few safety ambassadors walking in and out. Every now and then it's been quite smooth. So thank you very much. And we hope that the people online as well got as much off from this as those who attended in person. I still think we need physical events, so we plan to continue that. I'd like to thank again our own Peter Raven. He's the gentleman that's wearing the LogiSYM shirt, and all the committee members, yeah, who've taken time out. All these gentlemen, aside from Martin and Bob, Stephanie, Derek, who was moderating the session earlier, or the MC, and so Marcus Kraft, they're all volunteers, and that's what keeps LogiSYM going. So I say again, if any of you want to volunteer your time, please see Kendrick or Scott after we close off. They'll take your names and we'll assign tasks to you. We need all the help that we can get. Our next LogiSYM is planned. We are planning a roundtable, a LogiSYM for Vietnam on the 10th of August. And we're also more or less finalized the ITAP LogiSYM partnership, and we plan to run this on the 20th of October here in Singapore. It's a slightly different LogiSYM. It is going to be by invitation only. So you know how you've had this LogiSYM where you can just sign up, use the complimentary passcode and turn up. When we run it with ITAP on the 20th of October, it's going to be by invitation only. So some of the committee members know I take part in this event in Thailand every year. We started out about 8 or 9 years ago with 40 participants who get invited to go to Thailand and speak. And every year they cull 5 to 10 of these participants. In 2019, we only had 4 of us left. So it was almost like a competition to see who could be good enough or entertaining enough to continue getting invited back. I didn't get invited these last 2 years, but that was due to COVID, I think. The ITAP LogiSYM that we plan to run in October is by invitation only. It's going to be targeted to a limited number of people. We still have to get this approved by the committee. I can see Bob frowning at me and saying, when was that agreed? Yeah. But it's something that we plan to do. So it will be a bit different from the symposium that we run in the start of the year. And I hope to see many of you there. With that, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the 2 days and the participation, and be well and be safe. Have a good day.